It's your boy Wiener Dog here today with another video. Right. Recently, I was talking with one of my friends who said something really particular to me, which really stuck out, and that's like the reason why I'm making this video today. Right. So he has seen my growth ever since I was like 17, 19. So he has seen the growth from the moment I met him, and that could be like the beginning of like 5 years ago. And I remember that, I used to be super antisocial, super depressed. I was super anxious. I had all these things, and I met one of my friends that I know today at a park, one of those like teenage hangouts where everybody's like depressed, emo, smoking weed, stuff like that. It was a really depressing environment, to be honest, and like they would all complain. And I met him in that moment, and from there we became really good friends. We had lots of adventure afterward, and we did like a bunch of experiences. We did a bunch of things together, right? And he has seen my growth from like when I was like 15, 17 years old, and it's been really massive because, one day when I reached my lowest moment, I decided that I'm gonna improve my life, right? And I did. And yesterday he said, I gotta get out of your level, bro. And I just need to get like at my fucking level. That's like what he said, which really made me reflect on the time where I was before and now who I am today. Because obviously, I would say I'm in a way better spot than who I was back then. Almost compounded effect, really compounded. And to be honest, nowadays he's really struggling to like overcome his addictions. He's trying to work out, and I really support him because it's amazing that somebody wants to overcome your addictions like that, and overcome and start working out, doing things that are positive for you, right? So how did I like my advice for him and like anybody watching this video is like how did I overcome all those things? Is because in that moment where I decided that I was gonna become successful, I reflected that I remove everything that held me back from realizing that, whether that was my own addictions, my own actions, or people, right? So in that moment where I dropped so deep, like rock bottom, like the lowest part of my life, I simply made that choice that I was gonna be successful, and I think that's really what has brought me here today, right? I made that choice that I wanted to be somewhere, I wanted to do something, I wanted to be someone, and that someone who had addictions, would have to overcome them and replace them with things that positively brought him towards where he wanted to go, right? I went cold turkey. I used to smoke so much weed. I used to watch so much porn. I used to do all nighters, junk food, you name it, right? And I was just thinking that I was just giving him some advice, and there was a book that I really liked back in the day when I used to. After I made that choice, I started studying success. I started studying successful people, and there was this book called The Power of Habit by like Charles Duhigg, right? And I realized that absolutely everyone have one thing that separates them from being successful versus being a loser, right? And that one thing is called habits. Daily actions unconsciously, which is a habit, and then consciously when it's a choice. I think you have to become, in order to change, you have to self reflect on yourself so much and have so much self awareness where you can bring consciousness to all these things that are, holding you back and ask yourself, why do I do these things? And you have to question them. And in that questioning, you bring awareness to those things, and it's much more easy to change something when you're aware of something, right? And obviously, you gotta think there are sins and then there's virtues. There's things that take life away from you, and there's things that give you life and pull you towards success or where you want to be, right? So in that moment where I dropped down, I was at my lowest point in my life, rock bottom. I isolated myself from everybody, and I really spent a lot of time in solitude. And in that solitude, I asked myself questions like, who do I want to be? What do I want to do? Like, who am I? I really asked those questions. Now it's obvious to me, like, who I am and, like, what I want to do, right? But I would think it's really important to being comfortable in silence, right? I think that's the whole point of meditation as well. But really, what really changed my trajectory towards, success was after I, you know, decided that I wanted to be successful. In that moment, I knew everything that I did not want in my life, and that's why I decided, people, addictions, and in those solitude moments, I would ask myself, where do I want to go? What was my dream? If there was no barrier to success, where would I be? Right? What would I be doing? So I cut it out everything that did not support my dream. And everybody from high school, they were like partying or doing drugs, right? Obviously, so they were a waste of time. And I realized that in that moment, I had surrounded myself in those, obviously in those teenage park hangouts. I realized that I had surrounded myself people who complain, people with a victim mentality, right? Obviously, I started reading a lot of books, and I realized that one thing that also separated the successful people from unsuccessful people is that successful people take ownership over their lives. They don't have victim mentalities. Nobody's gonna save you. I realized that nobody's gonna save you but yourself. And all these people who are unsuccessful, like those people I mentioned at those teenage hangouts, they all had something in common. They would complain about life and they would have victim mentality. Now that I think about it, the thing that really changed me against them, for example, is that I took full ownership of my life, and I decided that I was gonna change my life for the better, despite whatever it took to do that, right? So going back to the habits thing, you have to realize what are you doing that's going against you. You gotta be really conscious about what you're doing on a daily basis, right? And obviously, I'm not gonna preach perfection. Progress is valued more than perfection, right? Obviously, there's so many times where I would go back to these addictions, and I would be consistent and I would go back. But that is part of the process. I mean, if you've been doing something for so long, you can't expect it to, just vanish immediately. Or for some people, that is the case, for example, mines, but not everyone's like that, It's like being fat, you've had bad habits for the past 10 years. You can't expect to have results in the first month, right? I mean, you can get results, but not change your life completely. It just takes time, and it takes habits, creation of habits, right? So, in that solitude, I would listen to my inner voice of who I am, and I just it led me to where I am today, right? I stopped drowning it with drugs and distracting myself and just doing the wrong things, and I started listening to it, right? Because all these people I see have all these potential. You're young, right? Ambitious, and the problem is, you gotta act now because time is ticking, and that's why I just stopped hanging out with those people at all because I just felt like I was wasting my time with them. And that's a realization that you have to get. It's like time is ticking. Every day is a day less, and you don't know how many more blessed days you're gonna have. Obviously, we're young, we're expected to live long, but really, you don't know when is you're gonna be your last day, and you gotta take every day as if it was the last one and savor it. So, how do you want to be living your life? How do you want to design your life to make that happen? Right? Time is ticking. The more you wait, the worse it is, and like discipline is the only true vehicle of freedom. If you can control yourself, your mind, you can achieve anything. And discipline is something I believe you can learn, right? By facing the uncomfortable. I used to hate taking cold showers, and I just trained myself to take cold showers every single day. No excuses. Every single day, even Sundays, Saturdays, right? In the morning. Now, obviously, once you do start embarking this journey and you start taking positive action towards your goals, at first it's gonna be small, right? But it's gonna compound and start accumulating in the right direction. And when you less think about it, it's just gonna compound, right? There are things that you can do that impact all areas of your life, like working out, eating healthy, obviously, right? But I believe that, from where I was yesterday and where I am today, I believe that once you eliminate everything that's not in your favor, once you're in that solitude, in that state of pureness, if you give it time, because it was not immediate for me either, I believe the right people will show up in your life, whether that's a relationship or friends. I believe the right opportunities will also show up, and everything is going to gradually start taking place. It's going to take time, yes. Like, who's there to say it's not, right? Now, nowadays, I'm grateful that I'm surrounded by the right people who share the vision, who are ambitious, who are successful. Obviously, that becomes my inner circle, right? And I just feel like I'm in the beginning, and I'm going to start sharing this journey of mine because I feel like I am just at the tip. I am just beginning to start at the very beginning. Like, there's so many things that have yet to happen, so many things, so much money to be made, and so many things to be doing right. It is barely the beginning. So much things have happened. I feel grateful for that, for the place where I am today. I feel like it's much more easier to get stuff done and make things happen thanks to all this leverage that I've been building over the past years, right? Not saying it's not easy, it's just easier, right? And yeah, once you know up, everything starts to line up. When you start getting focused, you start craving deep focus. You just start craving, working into the right directions. Like in my case, you just start craving this every day. You start craving doing the right things that are gonna pull you in the right direction every single day, and it just becomes who you are, and you start to crave it, right? Once you spend that time in solitude, really define who you want to be, who you are, everything else just becomes logistics. And these are things that I would have wished I would have known when I was younger, because fighting this battle by myself with no support every day felt eternal, right? And nowadays, honestly, I would, with AI, I would have like spent time on solitude. I would ask AI what to do, what would be my next steps or something like that. That would have been like easier, right? But looking back, I don't regret it. I don't regret the time I spent. I'm grateful for like all the time it took me to be where I am today. And yeah, everything else just becomes logistics. I mean, I wish I would have known this earlier, because I was desperate and in need for results back in the day after spending so many times in poverty, being hungry, walking, having super long walks, and just starving, right? Nowadays I know I love working out. I'm an athlete. And this is like pretty much advice that I would give to my friend. This is a message for him and like anybody else who is watching this channel. Just wanted to record this video straight from the heart, no edits. And I know that sound repetitive sometimes, but that's just how the words come out of my soul. Right? He said he wanted to be my video editor, and I really look forward to that. That's in God's will, because that would really be a game changer for us and for him, because I know that I can pull him easily in the right direction and put him in front of the right people, right? But that's up to him. I really believe that I can genuinely impact him positively in his life, especially since he's been actively trying to do some things for himself, right? And this is the message I wanted to express today, and I understood that, I sacrificed a lot of things to be here, and I continually sacrifice. Sacrifices never end. But the thing is, they don't feel like sacrifices anymore. The things that I choose, right? I didn't want to go to school, to be honest. I didn't want to study a career for like 5 years and work until I was 65. That was not what life was about for me. I understood at a young age that you don't have to go to college in order to be successful. And that was a game changer. I started reading books and I understood the 4-hour rule. Right? If you practice 4 hours daily of your craft every day, you will become a master in 5 years. And I thought, why don't you study 4 hours daily of business, of sales, or like any ability that music, athlete, musicianship, sports, anything, man. Think about it. Why don't you do that and that you'll become a master. So I just felt like I went through so much prejudice, so many people judged me, but I'm grateful. Sorry, I'm grateful because here I am today in a better spot, and I'm gonna continually go in a good spot and share it. Wiener Dog out.